All right, let's dive straight into today's explainer. We are looking at a massive paradigm shift regarding what it actually takes to start a business, without completely burning out before you've even picked out your brand colors. If you've ever felt that itch to create something of your own, I'm sure you've bumped into a mountain of advice telling you exactly how to begin. But the source material we're digging into today, it flips that conventional wisdom completely upside down. We're going to break down exactly why so many early business attempts fail. And spoiler alert, it's almost never a lack of hustle. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of where the starting line actually is.
So I want you to pause for a second. Seriously, what do you believe the very first step to starting a business actually is? If you were to sit down at your desk right now, fired up to launch a new venture, what's the first thing on your to-do list? Most people quite naturally assume the first step is defining the offer, or maybe it's mapping out this grand, sweeping strategy. For a lot of us, it's sketching out a logo, or maybe buying like 15 different domain names at 2 a.m., or figuring out exactly what product or service you're going to sell. And hey, it makes total sense, right? That's the tangible, exciting stuff. But as we're about to see, jumping straight into those elements might just be the exact reason why things eventually fall apart.
Well, get ready, because the source material throws a massive wrench into our expectations here. The offer isn't the first step, and the strategy also not the first step. This is a complete debunking of the conventional wisdom we've literally all been spoon-fed about entrepreneurship. When you hear that, it kind of creates a bit of a mystery, doesn't it? If we aren't supposed to start with the offer and we aren't supposed to start with the strategy, then what on earth are we supposed to be doing? To really get this, we need to look at what happens when you completely ignore this advice and just rush straight into the tactical work.
To illustrate this, the author of our source text shares their own super frustrating journey of trial and error. They actually built 5 different things before finally understanding this core concept. They didn't just fail once. They went out, got a coaching certification, then they tried starting a jewelry line, after that, a gut health program. I mean, that is a ton of intense effort across completely different industries. But the author notes that absolutely none of it held. None of these ventures lasted. And the kicker? The reason they didn't hold wasn't because the jewelry was bad or the coaching was poor. They didn't hold because the author skipped the actual first step of the entire process. And this quote brilliantly illustrates exactly what went wrong in those early attempts. The author writes, "Most people try to build a business the way you'd build a house, without checking the ground first. They just go straight for the offer, the launch, all of that highly visible, exciting work. And honestly, I think we can all understand that pull. It is genuinely fun to design a logo or dream about a massive launch. It feels so productive. But the source material points out a really uncomfortable truth. Looking at yourself honestly, that's uncomfortable. It is so much easier to fill in the blanks on some PDF strategy guide than it is to examine the internal foundation you're actually trying to build upon."
Let's look at how this plays out in the real world for an entrepreneur. If you skip checking that internal ground, your sense of who you are becomes entirely built on your outcomes. It gets completely tied to how the launch goes, how many people show up to your webinar, or whether the project finally pays off financially. The danger here is that you'll spend your entire life at the mercy of results you cannot fully control. When your identity is fused to your business, a sudden dip in sales feels like personal evidence that you are inadequate. But the healthy reality? When you actually take a step back, that dip is just data. It's just feedback. It's a totally normal part of building anything real, rather than some personal indictment of your actual worth.
So how do we actually fix this? The author lays out phase 1 of their framework to solve this exact problem. Step 1 is incredibly simple. Just acknowledge the state you are in, whether that's exhaustion or fear or burnout. Those strong emotions are usually the exact moment when our identity and our work get dangerously fused together. Then, step 2 is the active, absolutely crucial decoupling of those two elements. You have to actively separate who you are from what you are currently building. This right here, this is the true first step of starting a business. It's not the offer. It's not the strategy. It is drawing a hard, impenetrable line between your personal value and your business output.
So the crucial point really comes down to this contrast. Think of who you are as a mountain. It's stable ground. It existed long before you ever had this business idea, and it's going to exist long after this business has run its course. On the flip side, what you are building, that's just a chemistry experiment. It's a project. And because it's just an experiment, you get to revise it. You get to abandon it entirely, rebuild it from scratch, and try again as many times as you need to. When you've actually separated the two, running that business experiment never has to cost you your self-worth.
But the insights from the source material don't stop at psychological mindsets. It actually takes a sharp turn into something much more biological. The text states it very clearly. Foundation isn't just mental, it is physical. We spend so much time talking about business mindset,
overcoming imposter syndrome, and visualizing success. But all of that mental framing is completely useless if we ignore the actual physical reality of the human body that's trying to execute those ideas.
Which brings us to a critical biological state mentioned in the text: survival mode. If you're coming out of a season of heavy stress, or worse, if you're still living inside of one, your body has fundamentally adapted to that chaos. You have quite literally learned to run on adrenaline and stress hormones instead of rest. Your nervous system is perpetually bracing for impact. It's sacrificing its long-term health just to get you through the immediate tasks of the day. And if you are in this physical state, it drastically impacts your ability to build anything new.
I really need this next quote from the author to land for you, because it is perhaps the most powerful realization in the entire text. You cannot pour a new business out of a body that's been quietly running on empty for years. Just let that sink in for a moment. We try to force it, don't we? We try to just caffeinate our way through the exhaustion. We try to use sheer willpower to generate creative, engaging business ideas while we are entirely physically depleted. But the source text is abundantly clear. The physical toll of trying to build from a place of emptiness is a guaranteed path to the business failing to hold, just like those 5 early attempts the author mentioned earlier.
So, before you map out your sales funnel, you have to strip away the superficial metrics. You are not your job title. You are absolutely not your bank account balance. These external markers fluctuate wildly when you run a business. If you attach yourself to them, you are going to be on an emotional roller coaster that your nervous system simply cannot handle. We have to clear these false identities out of the way first.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question posed by our source material today, and really, the perfect way to wrap up this explainer. Who are you underneath everything you're currently trying to build? You have to answer that first, because as the author points out, everything else you do, every product you launch, every strategy you implement, stands on top of that single answer. If the ground is stable, the house you build can weather any storm. But if you don't know the answer, the very first strong gust of wind in your business is going to knock the whole thing down. Take the time to check the ground. Answer this question for yourself. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.